Founded in 1930 in Geneva, BP International today connects business and professional women in more than 100 countries. With consultative status at the United Nations, BPW works to strengthen women's leadership, economic empowerment, and equal participation in all areas of society. So I'll give you 1 minute. No.
Sorry.
So,
no, like.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I think we don't need that.
We don't
Yeah,
really.
I mean, you can
Yeah.
sit outside and.
Kettlebells.
Yeah.
Anyway, you had a short glance at it and you know where you are. So, for nearly a century, BPW has been at the forefront of advocating for equal economic participation, leadership, and empowerment. We are a community of employers, employees, entrepreneurs, and experts who believe that when women thrive in business, societies thrive too. Our mission is to develop the professional potential of women and to promote economic independence. But here at BPW, we also understand that true professional equality goes far beyond boardroom quotas or equal pay. A woman cannot bring her full potential to the workplace, to leadership, or to her community if her very biology is systematically overlooked. A woman cannot lead effectively if her fundamental health and safety are compromised by systems that were never designed with her in mind. This is why we are here today. The topic before us is not only a medical issue, it's a professional, economic, and fundamental rights issue. Today, we will address the unrecognized burden, sex-specific adverse drug reactions in women. For decades, medical research operated under a deeply flawed assumption that the female body is simply a smaller version of the male body. And for far too long, the male body was treated as the medical norm, while women's health was overlooked or insufficiently studied. This is precisely where gender medicine becomes essential. Gender medicine aims to ensure that biological sex and gender differences are systematically considered in research, prevention, diagnosis, and healthcare. Austria has begun to address this imbalance. The Austrian Ministry for Women has recently committed 8.4 million euros to support research in gender medicine. An important and encouraging step. But it also raises an important question. Why has it taken so long to invest seriously in research that reflects the health realities of half the population? At the same time, we must acknowledge a broader global challenge. In many parts of the world, women still lack even basic access to health care and to what we call standard medicine. Gender medicine, therefore, cannot be seen as a luxury topic for advanced healthcare systems. It is part of a wider effort to ensure equitable healthcare, better science, and safer treatment for women everywhere. Because when medicine works for women, it ultimately works better for everyone. And now it is my pleasure to give the floor to Rita Asonia, who will continue with the presentation of our distinguished speakers.
Thank you very much, Rita. We have today two Ritas. Let's us begin. We have three speakers today. Two are here in person and one is online, but we have a video because we know that here internal is difficult to have a presentation for someone not being in person. So our first speaker is Belinda Pletzer. She's a neuroscientist at the Department of Psychology at the University of Salzburg, Austria, whose research focuses on hormonal influences and cognition and brain function, as well as sex and gender differences in neuroscience and medicine. She's an internationally recognized neuroscientist specializing in the hormonal modulation of brain function and behavior, with a particular focus on sex hormones, stress hormones, and women's health. So you have the word now.
Okay, so I'm starting. Okay, thank you.
And the presentation.
Yes, I need my presentation, please. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. So I guess I can skip the introductions. Thank you for the nice words. I started my scientific career about 20 years ago, and the thing I was most interested in was the brain. I soon shifted my focus to women's health research for one primary reason. And that's not, let me see. Okay. Not because I'm a woman, and as such, I obviously have a specific interest in understanding the female body and the female brain, because after all, research is research, as much as researchers want to deny that. But I think there's actually not that much of a problem with that, as long as the researchers are diverse and everyone can do this research. It was also not specifically. Next. Okay. Okay, thank you. Not because I'm a feminist and wanted to contribute to health equity, though that is also obviously 100% true, and both of those reasons are super important. But when I shaped my research focus, I was thinking about something completely different. Because first and foremost, I am a scientist. And as a scientist, I was thinking about data. I wanted to obtain and gain high quality data so I could truly understand the human brain. And we didn't have that 20 years ago, and we still don't have enough of that now, even though I've been working on it. But it's still not enough. And that's why I'm here today, and that's I think we are all here today because we are all aware that we are facing a huge gender data gap. And it's kind of become my mission to close it because that gap is hurting science. And by hurting science, it's hurting people of all genders, not just women, because there is important information in a woman's body that can help us understand societies, bodies in general, brains in general, and so on. So I focused my talk today from a research perspective on how to close the gender data gap, more specifically how to close it in clinical trials, because that's what we need to understand adverse drug reactions. And because even though what I will tell you today applies to research in general, it was my shifting from basic to clinical research that made me aware of the challenges that we face when we try to close the gender data gap and when we try to study women. Over the past 5 years, I have been running a clinical trial on how hormonal contraceptives shape the female brain. And from a clinical trial point of view, hormonal contraceptives are kind of unique because they are A, female-specific drugs, B, they are specifically for females in their reproductive years. And that's kind of, I will tell you later, something that you don't see very often in clinical trials. I will even try to avoid that in clinical trials. And then they are designed for healthy people, so not for patients with specific illnesses. And that's why we usually don't even think about them as drugs. And I guess they were not the drugs that you were thinking about when you entered this symposium today. But from a clinical trial point of view, I think the hormonal contraceptives are the key. Because in their role as contraceptives, they can help us include more women in clinical trials and try to close the gender data gap regarding adverse drug reactions. And for me, because it's a medication specifically for females, and now I've been studying females in a clinical trial for a while, they showed me how women interact with the healthcare system, with healthcare professionals, and vice versa, also how the healthcare system uses them. When I started, the challenges I will identify today seem trivial to me. A colleague of mine from marketing, she always tells me, yeah, you can't talk about it because that's what's called a hygiene factor. In marketing, a hygiene factor is something that you just assume, you can assume it's there as a given. But as scientists, I think it's our duty that we need to identify what actually is there and not what should be there. So let's stop making assumptions and look at things as they are. And the first thing that I assumed to be there as a given, but found not to be there at all, is trust. When I started running my clinical trial and I did my feasibility plan and my financial plan and calculated my sample size and did a power analysis and all of that, I never expected that I would spend 90% of my working time just trying to build trust with my research participants, with the trial patients. And I have to admit, failing spectacularly at that. Because it was my experience in this trial that by and large, women don't trust the healthcare system. And I realize I'm saying this from an overprivileged position as a white woman in a Western country with a healthcare system that, depending on the indicator you look at, ranges among the best 10 to 20 worldwide. So when it comes to healthcare systems, we are already high up, basically. You don't have to take it from me. There are multiple studies that outline that even though women are the most frequent consumers of healthcare services because they manage the everyday medical care of their families, they have less trust in these healthcare services, in the healthcare system as men, and they also have less trust in clinical trials. And that's because whether they are aware of it or not, women unconsciously know that the healthcare system wasn't built for them. And many drugs we prescribe weren't really designed for them or with them in mind. Hormonal contraceptives, we can have a discussion about that, whether that was the case or not, but in general, we have a lot of drugs on the market that were not designed for women. And if you think about that, now we are here business and professional women, right? So if we think about that from a business point of view, that is kind of absurd because what company offers services that are not tailored to the needs of their most frequent consumers? On the market, that would be entrepreneurial suicide, but apparently as a healthcare system, we can afford that. That's not a problem. And if we face a trust issue in the healthcare system in general, in clinical trials, we face it doubly so. Because clinical trials are by far the most untrustworthy thing that the healthcare system has to offer, because they come with uncertainty. There we don't only deal with adverse drug reactions, we deal with adverse drug reactions that are by definition unknown. And if our patients, if our participants don't trust us to take them seriously, how can we adequately record those reactions? And how can we trust them to report those reactions honestly? So to sum this up, in my experience running a clinical trial, I think trust is a bottleneck for recruitment, both in terms of sample size and in terms of sampling bias. Because research results are only as good as the data they were drawn from. And the data are not representative if they don't include the people who need the results the most. And the women that we manage to include in our clinical trials are usually very well educated, usually don't have any prior conditions or anything, so they are usually not the ones that need the results the most. So we need to find a solution here. So that's the first challenge I pose for discussion. How can we study women if they don't trust us enough to study them? The second challenge I identified is tightly coupled to that and has to do with the nature of the adverse drug reactions that we want to record. Let me broadly entitle this challenge with the psyche. Psychologist after all, sorry. Because I also realized that psychological side effects are very important to women. That's probably because they already carry the lion's share of the mental health burden worldwide. And we can make a whole separate symposium on why that is so. But nevertheless, we as scientists are notoriously bad in assessing psychological side effects of drugs or anything on to do with subjects, basically. Because we don't really have any fancy sensors or machines to measure them. We can, for instance, record the cortisol response to a stressor, and it still won't tell us how the subjects perceive a stressor or how stressed they are, how they feel about it. I myself spent the last 20 years scanning women's brains to get objective measurements. Then I could have just asked them how they felt. Because there is important information in the psychological state of an individual. Feeling down or depressed, somehow unwell or just off, I think the medical term is malaise, is the first signal that our body gives us to tell us that something is wrong. And women value that information very much. So we as scientists, we should value that too. And we should expand our clinical trials to not just sporadically, but systematically address psychological side effects. Because I think we severely underestimate the global burden of disease posed by adverse drug reactions related to mental health. So psyche was the second challenge. The third challenge is change, or vice versa, the illusion of stability. Because when I started out, I realized that one of the reasons we haven't studied women as often as men is because apparently they change. Surprise. And apparently this is something that is very special that only women do, because all other people, they never change at all in their life. No, actually the point I'm trying to make, I haven't just studied women, I also studied men. I did testosterone fluctuations in men. So women are not so special in that respect. Everybody changes all the time. It's called being alive. We have to change because we have to adapt to our environment. So if we didn't change, we had a problem. Yeah? But the problem for scientists is that women do so more obviously than men. We cycle, we get pregnant, we go through menopause. So scientists have treated women like Schrödinger's cat. So menstrual cycle, sorry, Schrödinger's cat. So as a scientist, okay, woman in the box, we have multiple stages, but how can we account for that in the clinical trial? How should we tie our results to that? So maybe, no, let's not open that. Because that would make our research designs way too complicated. We would have to include multiple time points, we would have to increase our sample size, we would have to do more complicated statistical analysis, so that's something that we want to avoid. But as someone who has also studied fluctuations in men, I can tell you that actually women are quite easy to study. I can open the box and I can tell you, I can look at the woman and I can tell you what reproductive stage she is in. Not always perfectly, but usually, because all the changes that I mentioned are tied to menstruation, and that's the outward sign that we women have, that men don't have, that will tell us what cycle phase we are in. So the fallacy lies in assuming that women change and men don't, because men change too. It's just not so visible. But simply ignoring change doesn't improve our research results. We need to start taking intra-individual variations into account for everyone, not just women. So, change was the third challenge. And the final and biggest challenge, in my opinion, is not only a societal challenge, it's also a legal challenge. And that challenge is vulnerability. Women of reproductive age are considered a vulnerable group for clinical trials. Here's an example of my own clinical trial registration. I'm studying women of childbearing potential, not using contraception and using contraception. So, so it's our childbearing potential that apparently is the problem, because, surprise again, women of reproductive age may, even inadvertently, get pregnant. And that comes not only with a higher administrative burden for the researcher, because as soon as you tick that box, you need to fill out all kinds of extra forms what you do with those women of childbearing potential. You have more legal responsibilities, because what happens if a woman gets pregnant and then the child also has an adverse drug reactions? You have restrictions for the inclusion and exclusion criteria, and you need more elaborate research procedures. A female research participant is never thought of as a single research participant. A female research participant may hypothetically be more than one research participant. We don't just think about the consequences for the woman, we think, and here is where it gets mathematically very complex, about the hypothetical consequences for a hypothetical child. And that is quite scary, and something that we rather don't want to think about. And as a mother, I completely understand it. As a pregnant woman, I would never have taken any medication that might even hypothetically have hurt my child. And I highly value my childbearing potential. But as a non-pregnant woman, I'm wondering, is that really all I am? Is that all I am, my childbearing potential? And who are we protecting? Because is my risk of getting pregnant so high that my health needs are less important than those of even a hypothetical fetus? At the very least, I am asking myself, who gets to decide? Because apparently I'm less free to participate in a clinical trial than a man because I need more protection. Did I ever ask for that protection? Was I involved in the decision whether I need that protection or not? I can't remember any of that. From the lens of a clinical trial, I share a similar status as a child or people with cognitive impairment who can't give informed consent. Because please don't get me wrong, I'm fully aware of the ethical complexities of this dual risk. And please don't twist my words when you go out of here because I can already hear that. Not protecting women doesn't mean that suddenly any form of violence against women is to be tolerated, because every human being, irrespective of their sex or gender, has the fundamental human right to be protected against violence. I'm not claiming I have the answer here, but I think we need to have a serious, unbiased, and unemotional discussion about whether or not we need this extra protection in clinical trials. Because, and now I'm citing Virginia Woolf, as she already stated, we can never have true equality as long as womanhood is a protected occupation in itself. By the way, that's from 1929, and she imagined that in 100 years' time, we wouldn't be the protected sex anymore. So we have 3 more years to see whether she was right. So I am ending my talk with a question to all women of childbearing potential. Do we really want to stay the protected sex? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Belinda.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was very interesting. I am sure there are a lot of questions, but at the end of all the presentation, we will have a section for questions. So the second speaker is Miriam Hall. She's a specialist in gynecology and obstetrics based here in Vienna. She's the president of Austrian Society for Family Planning and chairwoman of AIDS Health Vienna. For many years, she has been actively involved in civil society and politics on the topic of sexual health and reproductive rights in a wide range variety of contexts. To both her clinical practice and her leadership in public health advocacy, she has long been committed to strengthen sexual and reproductive health services and promoting evidence-based healthcare for women. She will inform us on Bill for Men, how medicine still systematically fails women.
Thank you.
You have the floor.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this is the title of my presentation. I think you heard a lot about me already, so I will skip this one and we'll start with the patriarchy in the petri dish. We start very small. Today I would like to show you a small glimpse of a shocking reality. Using facts from a wide range of areas within medicine and healthcare systems, I will illustrate how strongly our healthcare system in all its sectors is still oriented only toward men, how deeply patriarchy is embedded in its structures, and what this means for women, poorer healthcare, and all the consequences that come with it. 90%. I don't know how familiar you all are with the procedure for developing and approving new active substances, medications, and medical technology products. First, experiments are always conducted on cells. Only if these are successful, then the researchers proceed to testing on animals. If the animal tests are also successful, 3 phases of clinical trials follow, and then a substance can be approved. Now we come to the 90%. 90% of all pharmacological articles that you can find describe studies conducted only on male animals. However, we know that there are significant differences between the sexes in animals, also on a cellular level between male and female cells. But even in cell research, much of the research is performed just on male cells. What does this mean now for women? How many therapies failed to benefit women simply because they showed no effect on male cells and were therefore never tested on women? One example is the long-standing mystery surrounding the unpredictability of transplanted stem cells derived from muscle. Sometimes the muscle regenerated after transplantation. In other cases, nothing happened at all. The solution to the puzzle was female stem cells led to regeneration, while male stem cells resulted in little to no effect. 12%. Most studies on diseases that primarily affect women are conducted just on male animals. Only 12% of the studies include female animals on diseases that primarily affect women. And when female animals are included, testing is usually done during the early follicular phase, when the hormonal influence is the lowest, so the women are like the men, and it's easier to study them. But life is simply not a study, and in real life, women of reproductive age, as we heard, simply have menstrual cycles. Only 14% of studies on medical devices treated sex as a key factor. Only 4% analyzed their results separately by sex. As a result of that, for example, stents are less effective in women than in men. 4%. I now proceed to the patriarchy in the blister pack. In 1977, the FDA guidelines prohibited women in childbearing age from participating in drug trials. This was a consequence of the thalidomide scandal. It was not until 1993 that the National Institutes of Health Revitalization Act was passed in the US. Since then, women have been required to be included in government-funded clinical studies. Comparable regulations exist in Europe for preclinical animal studies as well. However, these requirements do not apply in generic drug research studies. These are primarily conducted on young, healthy men and only need to demonstrate equivalent bioavailability, so they don't need to show data on effects and side effects anymore. Yet there are statistically significant difference between men and women in the bioequivalence of most generic drugs compared with the reference medications. These requirements, so that women must be included in the study, also do not apply to independent pharmaceutical studies or to cell studies in the US. Consequently, this also means that many medications approved during this period were simply never tested on women. 53% of people living with HIV are female worldwide. In sub-Saharan countries, women face a 6 times higher risk to get infected with HIV than men. Yet, in studies concerning antiretroviral medications, only 19.2% of participants were women, and in cure studies, only 11.1%. times. Women experience adverse drug reactions 53% more often than men. This is FDA data from 2004 to 2013. Also, because there are a lot of sex-specific differences in drug metabolism. Gastric and intestinal transit time is longer in women than in men, so it has longer time in the body. Differences exist in liver and kidney metabolism. Women have higher body fat percentage, and fat tissue is better perfused than with blood than in men. Men, by contrast, have more muscle mass, and so on and so on. Despite this, dosage recommendations in most cases remain sex neutral. By the way, the most common side effect in women after nausea is that the medication simply does not work. In an analysis of more than 22,000 patient records from Israel and the US, women who required pain medication had to wait 30 minutes longer for it in emergency departments compared to men, 30 minutes. They also received it significantly less often than men. We proceed to the patriarchy in clinical practice. I don't know if you remember the film. The Yentl syndrome takes its name from the film in which Barbara Streisand disguises herself as a man in order to study. It describes the phenomenon that women receive misdiagnosis and mistreatment when their symptoms does not correspond to those typically observed in men. Heart disease is one of the best known examples, but more on that later. Autism provides another illustration. For a long time, it was believed that boys were affected 4 times more often. In reality, girls simply show different symptoms, and female socialization often leads to masking of the condition. Diagnostic criteria, but was based on studies conducted almost exclusively with boys. 78% of women report moderate to severe pain during the insertion of IUDs. Moderate to severe pain. Yet it has only been in the last few months that there has been any recommendation at all to take this pain serious and offer medication. This would be like dentists only starting in 2025 to offer anesthetic injections before performing root canal treatment. The examples for not taking female pain serious are endless. Pain medication during abortion procedures is often not provided or insufficient. Epidural anesthesia during childbirth is often refused or considered as weak and unnatural. Cervical biopsies performed when cellular abnormalities are suspected are routinely carried out without local anesthesia. I didn't learn how to do that when I became a gynecologist. Imagine removing a piece of tissue from a man's penis without anesthesia. 0.2. In 2021, the average number of healthy life years in Austria was 61.3 for women and 61.5 for men. So it was higher for men than for women. However, women born in 1960 in Austria have a life expectancy that is 6.5 years higher than that of men. So women live a lot longer than men, but have less healthy life years. The patriarchy as a cause of death. 32%. Women have a 32% higher risk of dying in or after surgery if they are operated on by a male surgeon than women treated by female surgeons. So the next time you go into the OR, ask for a female doctor, you're less likely to die. These differences remained even after adjusting for factors such as complexity of the surgery, age, or chronic illness. For the study, Canadian researchers retrospectively analyzed data from more than 1.3 million adults in Ontario who underwent elective or urgent surgery between 2007 and 2019. More than 2,900 surgeons performed these operations. Possible explanations include different working styles between men and women that led to different treatment decisions, as well as unconscious gender roles and biases that may cause male surgeons to treat females and males differently. Female surgeons, according to the study, did not show this pattern. Their patients, women and men, had similar outcomes after surgery. And this is despite the fact that surgical instruments are largely designed around male ergonomics and are often too large and too heavy for female bodies. Women are 18% less likely than men to be admitted to intensive care units after cardiac arrest. We come now to the heart disease part. After cardiac arrest, women are resuscitated less often. After successful resuscitation, they're less likely to receive cardiac catheterization, less likely to be treated in an intensive care unit, and they die more often. Young women die twice as often than men of the same age. Women with low socioeconomic status, for example, have 25% higher probability of heart attack than comparable group of men. Yet many physicians still do not know that cardiovascular disease is the #1 cause of death among women, #1. And diagnoses are missed because women's symptoms are considered as atypical. According to the United Nations estimates, 260,000 women die every year from complications of pregnancy and childbirth. About 70% of these deaths occur in sub-Saharan Africa, largely due to inadequate medical care. This is one woman every 2 minutes. This is the sum of the hospital costs for the family of Adriana Smith. She was a nurse in the United States, and this illustrates another extreme case. At 8 weeks of pregnancy, she was declared brain dead last year after a stroke, but kept on life support against the family's wishes because the embryo still had a heartbeat and strict abortion laws prevented the machines from being turned off. On June 13 last year, the child was delivered by cesarean section from the deceased woman at 822 grams as an extremely premature infant. The baby remains until today in the NICU. The family must pay the costs for the whole time of life support of the mother, as well as the ongoing treatment of her son themselves. This is the sum until today. Dorota, Agnieszka, Isabella. These names stand for all the women who have died due to lack of care under restrictive abortion laws, for example, in Poland, as of today. The result of all this is a gender data gap, a gender pain gap, a gender health gap, a gender morbidity gap. Poorer health for women, dying women. The patriarchy is not a law of nature, it's a system. Let's change it together.
Thank you very much, Miriam. And now we have the third speaker, who is not here, but we have a video of her because she's from Nepal and she could not come here because of the political situation, not very good at the moment. And she will give the point of view of the gaps in Asia, because probably they have more gaps than here in Austria. So our speaker is Sojiana Kormacharya, and she was born in Kathmandu, Nepal. She's a leading expert in women's health and public health initiatives from Nepal and widely recognized as one of the leading authorities in health in Asia. She's a gynecology or oncologist and certificate chronic healer, with over 2 decades of experience dedicated to women's health and cancer care. Her work focuses on strengthening awareness, prevention, and screening programs for women. She has played an important role in advancing community-based and culturally sensitive approaches to improving women's health outcomes across the region. She will inform us on sharing experiences in women's health awareness and screening program in Nepal. The video. The voice.
Namaste everyone, I'm Dr. Saujani Karmacharya, Gynecology Cancer Specialist at Nepal Armed Police Force Hospital. This week marks the completion of my 20 years of service in the force dedicated to women's health. During this time, I had the opportunity to conduct women's health awareness campaign across different parts of Nepal. Today, I'll be sharing some of my experiences, insights from these programs, highlighting the real health challenges and scenarios faced by women across the country. One of the most important barriers to positive health outcomes of women is the lack of knowledge and awareness. Many women do not prioritize their own health, often placing their family need first even when they are unwell. Another major challenge is transportation and access to health services. Specialist healthcare services are mostly centralized in urban areas, which creates a significant gap in the healthcare access for women living in rural area. As seen in the picture, many women stand in long queues just to meet specialists during health camp. For them, these camps become rare opportunities to consult a specialist, whereas in urban area, specialist care are often available much more easily. As a result, many patients rely on primary healthcare workers or pharmacists for their treatment decision instead of consulting specialists. Many health care workers prescribe treatment based mainly on symptoms rather than thorough clinical examination or appropriate diagnostic test. Most of these health workers receive only about a year of medical training, and training specifically are related to women's health often lasts for 2 to 3 months. Therefore, health awareness is extremely important. Women need to understand normal physiological changes, recognize what may be abnormal, and know when to consult medical facility. A study conducted in Nepal examined why many women present with late stage of cervical cancer, even though it is 100% preventable. The study found that nearly 70% of cervical cancer patients had not undergone physical examination during their first medical consultation. Instead, they were prescribed medicines based on their symptoms. This reflects a common scenario in many settings and contributes to delayed diagnosis, causing patients to present at advanced stage of cancer. In some cases, patients also discontinue treatment because of adverse drug reactions. Our Women's Health Awareness campaign focuses on educating women health professionals, young girls and boys in schools, teachers. The goal is to help them understand normal physiological changes women experience due to hormones, lifestyle changes, and also different stages of life, and to recognize when these changes may be abnormal and require medical consultations. We believe awareness is the most important step toward better health outcomes, not only in rural areas but also in urban communities. In the picture, you can see health awareness program conducted prior to the screening camp. In some images, women are standing in line, patiently waiting for their turn for consultation. The reality behind this scene is that many of these women spend around $60 to $70 on transportation, food, and lodging just to reach the camp for specialist consultation. Although medical service itself is free, the opportunity to see specialists is very valuable for them. In some pictures, you can also see health workers being trained to perform pelvic examination as a part of their learning process. In the western part of Nepal, many women belong to Muslim communities. Initially, many of them refused medical examination due to cultural and social reasons. However, after participating in health awareness sessions, many of these women themselves requested checkup. This is a clear example of how powerful and important health awareness can be. Similarly, in southeastern part of Nepal, we conducted women's health awareness camp. During this program, we arranged for a translator to assist us due to language barrier. One of the largest screening and awareness campaign we've ever conducted in the midwestern part of Nepal, where more than 8,000 women participated. During the program, we encountered 21-year-old women with excessive vaginal discharge who had chosen to undergo hysterectomy instead of medical treatment, largely due to lack of knowledge and awareness about their condition. This highlights the seriousness of the problem. In fact, more than 90% of women were unaware that vaginal discharge can be a normal physiological phenomenon. Currently, I'm working with one of the Cancer Relief Foundation where we have covered many rural parts of Nepal for women health awareness and cervical and breast cancer screening camp. During a health camp in Rasua district, which is close to capital, we had problem in travel, especially in our four-wheeler drive vehicle, risking our safety to reach the location. The government had provided HPV vaccination to protect against cervical cancer, but only 2 students received it. Most parents refused, fearing that their children were being used for experimental purpose. despite studies show that vaccine has more than 90% of efficacy and minimal side effects. This picture shows one of my role as visiting consultant at one of the largest hospital in the country, that is Bir Hospital, where I'm involved in training program for cervical cancer screening. I began the training by first explaining the normal physiology in women, which is essential for understanding disease and improving screening practices. I'm also actively involved with Leo clubs, and regularly I visit schools to provide health education to students. Every year, I participate in sessions on women's health with fellows from 24 countries through the organizations program like NELIS and OMLAS. NELIS stand for Next Leader Initiative of Sustainability and OMLAS 1 Million Leaders Asia. Through these platforms, they provide opportunities to discuss and deepen our understanding of women's physiology. Wherever I go, I make a point to seize opportunity to discuss women's health, whether it is government or private organization. I also use social media, podcast, interviews as effective ways to raise awareness and educate people about women's health. According to studies in Nepal, 63.2% of depressed patients experiencing adverse drug reactions were female, and women are more prone to lithium-induced thyroid dysfunction, skin reactions, and hyponatremia. Studies also show that healthcare professionals have inadequate knowledge of pharmacovigilance, with barriers to adverse drug reaction reporting, including lack of knowledge, limited time, and unavailable reporting forms. These findings highlight the need for improved awareness and training. In conclusion, improving adverse drug reaction reporting in Nepal requires regular training for healthcare professionals, easy access to reporting forms, and integration of pharmacovigilance into medical education. Strengthening women's health education is also essential to raise awareness, ensure patient safety, and promote timely medical care. Well, these were small efforts to help women and healthcare providers understand normal physiological changes, because I truly believe that to recognize what is abnormal, we need to know what is normal at first. Thank you, UN Vienna, for the opportunity, and thank you all for your patient listening. Thank you.
And now it's not finished. We have someone special. We have one of our members of BPW from Ethiopia, who is here in Vienna, and she will tell us something on the situation in Ethiopia. Yeah, come here.
Okay. Good afternoon. This was a last minute thing. If my speech is not coordinated, apologies. At first, when Rita asked me to discuss about the situations in Ethiopia, I was like, okay, like, what was my first experience with medication? And some years back, I wanted to get some treatment. And I went in, I did the testing, and all the results came in, and then it was a skin treatment. And then the first thing the doctor said, this is easy, we can solve it, and we'll give you a medication. It will be clear in like 3 months. And then, but I have some questions. He asked me, do you have a plan to get pregnant in the next 2 years? I was like, no one asked me, like, if I was getting pregnant, because I was doing my BSc, and then that was the first question I ever had properly. It was like, why are you asking me if I'm getting pregnant? I'm here for my skin, and then how is it related? And then he said, the drug is very effective, but on women it has like high effect, and then until 2 years, you might have like side effects if you get pregnant, and then your baby might be like affected. I was like, okay, I am from an engineering background. I had no idea what he was talking about. I was just scared. And then, okay, let me see what the drug is about. I tried to see it, but the drug is not on the market. It's not on the market in the country. Apparently, he brings it in. Okay, he is the only supplier. You go there, you get registered, then you get the supply. And I had friends who go abroad. So I was like, okay, somebody tried this from Paris, somebody tried this. Someone was in New York, and then no one can find it. Someone found it in Dubai, which was being sold on the black market. Okay, so you get, this is my experience, but so for this speech, I went online and then I saw, like, Rita asked me, what is the coverage of like healthcare in Ethiopia? And then I was like, I come from the city, the main city, Addis Ababa. And then if I don't know how many of you are aware about Africa, Africa is not always about like the Saharan desert or like the poor cities. We have the rural areas and then the urban areas. The economists, they like to use that term, the dual economy. We basically don't look like we live in the same country. So I am not a good representation because I live in the city. So in my city, the health coverage for women is around 98%. I don't know where the 2% goes from because we have healthcare. But in general, in the country, it's 23 to 30% of women can have access to healthcare. This means it's a huge difference. So for the research, as they mentioned, all the research are like centered in the urban area. If you want, even if you want a 50-50 like chances, you only have females in the urban area that can access this research, that can volunteer for this research. And this is one of the challenges. And for me, I think the country is very big because one of my research was like to check how big is my country. Ethiopia is around 9 countries here around in Austria, like including Germany. Like it's very big, okay? So it's understandable that we have this dual economy, but it has huge effects on women as well because the government focuses on the economical growth, and then healthcares have their own focus area, but this huge gap has its own focus as well. So my take from this, as I did my own research, usually what you do in the cities of Africa and then in the rural areas of Africa is very different. It's literally, the experience is very different. So that's what I can give you as a take, because if you want to do a research there, try to make sure you have representatives there, because we are Ethiopia is 110 million people, and
30.
only
30 the latest.
we got 30, but we did not do the census yet. Let's just take the census data, and then
Because I am also from Ethiopia.
oh yay! And currently it was 4 to 7 million in Addis Ababa. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yes. So it's the rest of the 100 million population
It's in rural
is in
area.
rural. So whatever research you are like planning to do as medical experts, try to balance that out. It's not just about balancing the men and the women. When it comes to Africa, we have this dual economy, so that can be a take for it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Because I forgot to say your name, Adane Faissa. So, and I think the situation is a little bit similar. What the situation we have seen from the videos of Gianna Cormacciaria. Very similar. Now, if you have some questions, or at least for the two ladies, because she is not online. No. So, Gianna.
Are you doing the moderation?
Yeah, okay.
So, both of you mentioned that there is not much data available currently, and that there is not a huge trend in getting more gender diverse data currently. Now that everybody and a lot of the research institutes, and especially pharma, is pushing towards artificial intelligence and algorithms to do the base research, how realistic do you think, or what efforts would be needed to get female data in there? Because currently, if you put in AI, it will be only male data because that's all that is available.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The AI won't collect the data. So it's up to the people who collect the data to make sure that the data are representative. The AI will do whatever you want, but it can only produce as good results as the data it works on. So that's the first step, acquire the best data.
I think rules and money.
Yeah.
You have to provide rules to include women in all the steps of the data collection, and you have to put money towards the topics of female health.
Is there already any funding in terms of trying to get something from pharma or from any other institutions?
Yeah, there is under the actual Ministry for Women in Austria, there is a funding for gender medicine studies of, I think, about 7 million.
8.8. Research is
8.4.
But you know, it would maybe also make sense if we collect something of those links and to put them officially on websites, so that people can see who is funding most, you know, just like a run rate, a list. And so that people can see which country put some more effort on this topic. And this could help also, you know, to make it visible. So because now everything is a closed subject, and this could help maybe.
Yeah.
But have you a way now or a strategy how to make it more visual to people? Because people don't know these things, you know. Is there a way how you can do it? Is it with brochures? Is it with films? Is it with maybe seminars or things like this, events like this, that people really get to know it?
I think it's all of this. You have to educate the researchers, you have to educate the healthcare providers at first. During my time of university, I didn't learn much about these topics. So that has to change for the ones coming now. But also you have to do campaigns for awareness. For instance, when we talk about the cardiac arrest and to do the CPR, you have to learn how to do that on female puppets, because puppets. Because in the last decades there were only male ones. So even if there is CPR performed, it's less effective because it's different if you have breasts, and so on. So I think it's a combination of all of it, and awareness is the first step.
Yeah, and also I get a lot of requests like for interviews, for podcasts, for blogs, for whatever. So,
but it's not a campaign, you know. What you just say is there a lot of puzzle pieces.
Yes.
But there is no campaign, and the question is, who could run a campaign with sufficient money? So who would be able to?
It sounds like a lot of money, but for research, that's actually not.
But you know, it could be then funded if you run a campaign with those really alerting issues. So who could be the head of the campaign, probably to get this up and running? This is my question. You know, who would be able to help?
Maybe BPW can do that.
Okay.
So like equal pay, we started equal pay, now we can start some equal help. Equal help. But
I would really, I feel triggered. And I would like to pick your suggestion and your idea. So maybe we can address it in April in Munich. I mean, as we have our European conference in Munich in April.
Well, what we could do is some brainstorming, you know, where to raise money, which sections in this organization or different ones you are already working with, trying to get them together. And because it's also a profiling for those companies, maybe they are interested. You never know.
And Geriga.
In the media, I heard that the Austrian Minister of Women's, she wants to do much more on women's health now. But as we Austrians know, they do not have a lot of money. I mean, there is the will and the wish. Maybe they can do a campaign, but money is always lacking.
Well, I've learned if companies are going to be in a good light, so sometimes, you know, they are more beneficiary money-wise than if you just ask for data, for example. So
Maybe
they try
companies
to,
like BPW or something like that, that's in their profile, I think.
Anna?
Yeah, thank you. No, thank you very much. This was really very important. And since we are here in a policy making UN context, so what kind of recommendations could be brought to the attention of member states so that they get also a UN mandate, you know? So is there any country that may be sensitive to bring forward a resolution for the commissions and the same to happen in New York and the Commission on the Status of Women, to have a narrative that is consistent across the UN policy-making bodies?
you need both, I would say.
Of course,
you need
exactly.
the administrative, also the industry. So
Exactly, you have
both channels.
everyone, and also the policies that are clear so that no one knows going against anything.
I think it would help if the rules for research from now on include all parts of research, females and males, cells, animals, and so on, and not only in the government-funded ones, but also in the generic research.
And across all the reproductive
phases.
phases. Yeah. And you need to actually let women participate in the trials. Not just request that they participate and then put a lot of burden on the researchers, because
that's a very important point. When COVID came, Vienna was actually one of the first big cities all over the world who provided the vaccine for pregnant women. And I was very involved in this effort, and I was vaccinating 2,000 pregnant women in the Vienna International Center here nearby. And we wanted to collect data from these women if they have side effects, if the pregnancy go on normal. And it was not possible to get permission from the ethical committee, because they told me we cannot do a vaccination study from today until tomorrow. It's not possible. And I was like, it's not a vaccination study. The vaccination is already on the market. It's we just want to collect data because it's really important for the whole world.
No.
The mayor of the city of Vienna tried.
And the women themselves, the pregnant
They were
women?
all, I talked to 2,000. I had collected all the, to write them emails, and was das Ende the permission, 2,000 were willing to participate, but I had to toss all the
So it's not in my will as pregnant woman, if I sign it and
If you don't have ethical committee permission, you are not allowed, and that's okay. But in these cases, you have to have rules that permit.
No, and also because I mean, there's different types of studies, and for each different type of study, you need a specific kind of ethical approval, and you need to have the right ethics committee that says that they are responsible for this ethical approval. I had many studies where I submitted to 3 different ethics committees, and all told me it's not their kind of study. So the study, even though it was like just a retrospective data analysis and nothing was done interventional to the women, I couldn't do it because no ethics committee said, I'm going to take your study and I'm going to evaluate the study. So it's really, tricky. It's an administrative nightmare.
but this is the Austrian problem or a
No,
European problem?
No, there's maybe European committees also involved.
Other countries where the research is better divided between men and women, for example, Sweden.
I think it's better in the northern.
It's
better, but it's
there
not.
was this scandal with the Kantagan babies. So the medicine was only tested on men.
No,
And
this
therefore
was
they-
everywhere, also in the US and in the whole of Europe, everywhere in the Western
Yeah, but
world.
why they didn't change their mind then? Because they proved it.
Okay. Yeah, we have to leave, unfortunately, it's time
Because
to
it's
go
just
because other people are so excited. I thank you very much. Rita, we're gonna go outside.